Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we're going to return to the wonderful world of Quo. And in this, I've compiled some different sessions all the way from 1981 to 2019, where the question is asked about guides. Now, I have a meditation, How to Meet Your Spirit Guide. And as I've explored this further, I've found that we have multiple guides. This is discussed in transurfing, in talking about having allies. You can find guides on so many levels, but there may be specific guides assigned to you by your higher self. The guides may be different from your higher self, and it is discussed in the Law of One. And they ask Quo this often about the role of guides in the ascension, and are the guides aspects of you, or is it another self that is guiding you? And these are questions that I've had, so I wanted to share what I've been able to find. Ultimately, your guides will be there whenever you ask them. In my own case, I have guides that are completely different from me. From what I've been able to find in talking to clients and myself, generally, you have three guides: one female aspect, a male aspect, and an androgynous aspect. Many of us never reach or talk to a portion of these guides. There may be additional spirit guides outside of what is within you. And we may have guides and angels all the time. So the question is, how can we differentiate these voices? And who are these guides? So let's see what Quo has to say. Now, if you have not checked out my previous episodes, Quo is sort of a corporate entity that's being channeled by the same people that channeled the Law of One material. Instead of going into a long explanation of that, I'd ask you to check out my previous episodes, but this is a combination of higher dimensional entities that have been created to easily transmit to channels that talk about very basic stuff, sometimes beautifully talking about our existence in this world, in the third density, and our movement from it. These questions are spiritual and powerful, and every single episode has touched me in certain ways in what I've been able to find, and I think that this will help you as well. Reaching out to your spirit guides can be a powerful process in your ascension, if you want to call it that. First of all, we can see in the Law of One a mention of the guides. In session 50 on May 6, 1981, they ask, I have a question from Jim about an experience which he had when he first moved to his land, in which he was told the key to our survival comes indirect through nervousness. The entity was Angelica. Could you give him information with respect to this? In a previous fragment, Jim talks about moving into a cabin in the woods in Kentucky and hearing these voices, and so they had asked Ra. And Ra says, as we have noted, each mind-body-spirit complex, which is what we are, including our souls and bodies, has several guides available to it. The persona of two of these guides is the polarity of male and female. The third is androgynous and represents a more unified, conceptualized faculty. The guide speaking as sound vibration complex, Angelica, was the female polarized persona. The message may not be fully explicated due to the law of confusion. We may suggest that in order to progress in a state of similar dissatisfaction will be present, thus giving the entity the stimulus for further seeking. First in the channeling session on February 20th of 2000. The question is asked. The question this week has to do with the concept of guides. We are wondering, what is the best way for anyone who wants to get in touch with his or her guide to do that? And we are also wondering if we are trying to get in touch with our guides and looking at our guides as something outside of ourselves, does that influence or affect our ability to get in touch with our guides? And if we are able to get in touch with our guides, does that add a responsibility to our life pattern? Carla channeling says, we are those of the principle known to you as Quo. Greetings in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. It is a blessing and a privilege to be called to you this afternoon. We wish to thank each of you for joining this circle of seeking and for calling us to your group. It is a great blessing for us to be able to share our opinions and thoughts, and you greatly serve us by enabling us to offer our service, for this is the way that we are attempting to be of service at this time. As always, we would ask that you consider each of our thoughts to see if they resonate with your own needs, but we are not those in authority, but rather your brothers and sisters who walk the same dusty path and make many mistakes. Thus, take what is useful to you from what we say and leave the rest. We suggest that you do this with all sources of information, for truly your inner discrimination will be that which resonates to what is right for you, which brings us to your requested topic, that of connecting with your guidance. For guidance is always available, and there are many ways in which one may frame the search for becoming more and more skillful at the using of it. To put this question in a context, we would like to talk about the worldly versus metaphysical universe. The dilemma of those who wish to live their lives from a metaphysical point of view is that this metaphysical universe is not the universe in which consensus reality or the physical reality you experience day by day takes place. The concerns of the outer world can absorb all of one's time and attention. And indeed, many there upon your sphere who manage to move from birth to the end of an entire incarnation without even once suspecting that there is another universe which interpenetrates the physical universe, whose laws are of a higher order than those of the physical universe. However, for most people, there are at least one or two times during the incarnation when it is brought clearly to one's attention that there is a higher order of reality, and that it is sometimes affects a physical reality. For those who are gathered today, there is a complete awareness of and a desire and yearning for that second universe of higher truth. Further, the body which carries you about contains that this instrument has called a biocomputer, the earthly brain, the choice maker brain, that is built specifically to deal with the either-or questions of survival, protection of home and family, and the other concerns of the earthly life. The guidance system for the earthly brain is difficult to describe in earthly terms, but the word intuition surely covers it. However, for those who wish to become serious students, who have begun their path of wandering, they're seeking for a true home. This either-or mentality does not satisfy for the simple reason that it cannot satisfy the needs of the metaphysical universe. However, each of you is also and predominantly a consciousness, a unique entity made wholly of love and light, which goes through many physical vehicles in many densities, and through many experiences within each density. This consciousness, which is you, can dip into the earthly universe, the physical world, by virtue of being wedded through the incarnational birthing process to a second density physical vehicle, that is your body. This consciousness, being a citizen of eternity, being infinite in nature, is completely adapted to doing work in the metaphysical universe, and each of you has lying in potential within you, or should we say within your consciousness, all of the guidance and information that you need. The challenge, of course, is how to gain access to that guidance. For however framed in conceptual structure, that guidance is a denizen of the deep mind, the roots of consciousness, and the door from the deep unconscious self to the conscious self must needs be opened or set ajar in some way in order for guidance to move into the conscious realm and become available in order that you may have access to it. It is well to remember that guidance is definitely and always there, even when you are at the most seemingly far reach from it, even when you feel most blind, deaf, and dumb. The guidance is there. The guidance is waiting for your awareness. It is a matter of unblocking the channels of communication rather than searching for something that may or may not be there. We say this because in order to access guidance, it is extremely helpful to be practicing a life in faith. We do not wish to imply a certain structure to a life in faith, but rather wish to look at this quality of love that is faith. Faith is a paradox, for one cannot gain faith. One simply must leap into behaving as if one had faith in order to begin a life in faith. Thus, the first act of faith is the leap into nothingness. Faith, after all, would not be faith if there were a way to rationalize it or prove that it existed by any reasonable inquiry. This makes faith a real challenge, for you have not faith. Then how do you achieve it? That leap looks very foolish and feels very dangerous, and yet we say to you that if you can hold the essence of faith, which is that all is well and that all will be well, if you can hold to this attitude, that faith will grow and flourish and bloom in amazing ways. And if you become overwhelmed with a lack of faith, You have but to start over to take that leap again, and the journey accelerates once more. There is never a failure that faith will not be recovered from. There is never a desert that is too wide for faith to cross. In faith, then, when you wish to seek guidance, you may approach this search in various ways. This instrument, for instance, allows guidance to come to her by praying to the Holy Spirit. This guide, which she thinks of an aspect of her higher self, and which she objectifies as a portion of the Creator, is a projection of that essence within the deep mind that can be called guidance. Therefore, to this entity does not come a conversation, but rather a feeling, an intuition, a sense of rightness. For this instrument, this degree of clarity is completely sufficient and satisfactory. For many others, there is a need to objectify guidance in persons, and thusly many entities seek their guidance in the form of guides. Again, all there is one, and in many ways, and on the deeper levels, all that is outside of the physical being is a projected portion of that physical being. If all things are one, then all that an entity sees is part of that entity, and, in one sense, a projection of that entity. Each of you see lives in a complete and unique universe, a creation of your own. It is slightly different, but definitely different from that universe of each and every other spark of the infinite Creator that has been sent forth. As this instrument was saying earlier, there are non-religious ways to set about discovering more about the guides that bless the entity with love and the desire to be of help in a spiritual or metaphysical sense. These projections of the self that are guides are also entities with their own identities, their own histories, and to some degree their own agenda. Some entities feel that they have one major guide, and it is to this one entity that the self goes. Indeed, some have objectified this guide to a great extent. Each of you has seen examples of channeling from inner guides that various sources offer, and each is familiar with the concept of getting in touch with the guide. The project, shall we say, of reaching to discover information is best approached within a framework of a daily rule of life that includes a period of meditation during each day. The mind, in the earthly sense, has that tendency to continue working whether or not there is prominent stimulation from the outer world, and thusly the inner world can be the world of one listening to a chatterbox. Many are the conversations entities such as this instrument have with themselves, all in the imagination, and this energy generally moves according to the law of inertia. It simply keeps going because that is what the mental biocomputer does. It runs, it operates, it is noisy. The idea then is to empty out the mental pockets and allow the earthly biocomputer to have a rest so that the consciousness may float free of the either-or demands of the earthly mind. Without the regular, habitual, and persistent use of meditation, it is very difficult to learn to stop the mind from running. And when the mind is running, the deeper guidance is very difficult to contact. Thusly, in order to prepare the ground for connecting with guidance, it is a very skillful idea to place the self in the act of meditation. There is a tremendous commitment, and it is a life changer. This entity, for instance, is fond of saying that she does not meditate well. What she means is that she cannot completely shut off her earthly brain. Bits of conversation and music continue to filter through all efforts to shut down the noise of the mind. However, true, this objective concept of the self as not being good at meditating is this instrument would be the first to express the powerful work that meditation on a daily basis has wrought in her life and experience. And indeed, any entity who has meditated for any length of time is aware that even a little of this silence of mind is a powerful accelerant of the process of spiritual transformation. We would strongly recommend, therefore, that any who wish to contact with their guides do this in the context of daily meditational periods. Remember that although each of you came into incarnation fully aware of all this that we are saying, during the birthing process, the veil of forgetting dropped neatly and usually completely over the consciousness, so that within the incarnation, the path back to the metaphysical universe must be retraced step by step. And in addition to the general confusion of the earth plane, much must be unlearned from the standpoint of the metaphysical universe that is included in the cultural training of young entities. Many are those who have said that adulthood is that period wherein one attempts to undo the damage sustained during childhood. Much needs to be unlearned as the view shifts from the earthly and physical to the non-earthly and metaphysical. In one universe, there are things, tables, people, planets, stars. In the other universe, there are energies, thoughts, ideals, and as a metaphysical entity, you are one who is, as opposed to the physical entity, which is one who does. Guidance is that connection between the metaphysical and physical universes which translates complex information concerning destiny and desire into earthly terms, which steps down the energy of the cosmos so that the self within incarnation can accept energy and intuition and essence and open the mind to the translation that guidance will make of these things in offering them to the conscious mind. The one known as R wondered if it would matter as to how one framed the request for this guidance, and we may say that indeed this is so. If one frames the search for advice and wisdom as a search for guides, then it is very likely that entities as opposed to energies will be contacted. We may say that it is very difficult to express the nature of these essences and energies that are guides and guidance. Take, for instance, that of angels. Angels are another way of describing inner plane guides. When entities over a long period of time think along the same patterns and constructions of thought, there is created by such thought the reality that such thought embodies. Thoughts become things and guidance becomes angelic. And it becomes true that for each entity, there are several angels. If we were to go through each culture and its religious beliefs, we would find the channels and pathways by which the body of entities that believed in that wise perceived their guidance to be housed or contained within. And thus you have fairies and genies and inner plane masters and so forth. There are as many different ways to contact guides and guidance as there have been groups of people or entities by themselves who were seeking in a certain way with certain needs. What you may depend upon is that you fashioned for yourself before incarnation triggers whose nature would depend upon your appreciation and your awareness of the guidance that you need. As you seek for your guidance, you need to follow that intuition that you have within you and those feelings that come from the heart. For it is the wisdom of the heart which often expresses through emotions only. That is the kind of beast, as this instrument would say, that guidance truly is. It is not an intellectual source. Guidance is not heavy on logic. Guidance can be paradoxical and in many ways can offer varying views on the same subject. What guidance is, as we said, is connections made within the self that enable the content of the deep mind to be moved close enough to the conscious mind that a translation of concepts into words and thoughts may take place. So what you are doing is asking the self to release the physical universe from consciousness and to move down into the roots of mind. Meditation is the specific way that we would suggest that this movement down into the roots of mind be approached. Each entity will have a different experience when attempting to create the habit of daily meditation. For some entities, it is a procedure that is very easy. Some entities offer to themselves within incarnation the gift of a quiet mind and economical thoughts. And for such entities, meditation seems almost a natural way of life. For others, it seems most unnatural and is correspondingly difficult to create as a habit, and yet we say to you that regardless of the subjective experience, while gaining that habit of silence within each day, the progress is being made. It may feel as though one is coming up against a solid brick wall and going nowhere. We assure each that this is not so, that if the time is put in and the desire is true, the meditation periods will do their work, and meditations will begin to appear in a more lucid clarity. As the one known as Tom said earlier, it is not that the situation changes, it is that the response to the situation begins to change, which alters the situation not for any other necessarily, but only for the self. Yet since all metaphysical work is work on the self, this is a completely satisfactory situation. we would suggest that it is well to develop one's personal way of approaching guidance, to put some time and concern in on clarifying to the self what is truly desired, what is truly sought, where the passion and intensity of one's life is. For this process of seeking guidance and of listening to that guidance is an important part of accelerating the pace of your spiritual evolution. You will evolve spiritually regardless of what you do. The Creator's universe is somewhat efficient. Catalyst happens. Experience is gained. You do change. However, each of you is hungry for a faster pace of transformation, a more secure feeling that one is on one's way. That one is on the path. And certainly the whole process of meditation and of listening within, that silence, is central. We wish each of you the joy of finding your desires, of honing and sharpening those desires, and of seeking guidance in the pursuit of that thirst for truth, for love, for the Creator. Remember that you may be part of others' guidance systems, and you may not know it. Remember that when services small or large are done with love, they will provide guidance regardless of who else is aware of your actions. When energy is put out, it is not ignored, so that even if you do not know that you are guiding and the entity does not know that he is being guided by you, yet still the energy transfer will take place. So at all times be aware of the ethical considerations involving relationships with others, for you do not know what service you might provide by simply being yourself. We are with you in the silence. We sit with you in the darkness of the mind. There is love in that darkness. Know that it is there. Have the faith that your search is a good one, and allow. That is the word that opens the door once the silence is achieved. That word, allow. Allow the intuition to arise. Allow the still small voice to speak. You will not hear, for it is silent. You can only act upon faith with that feeling of rightness. In another session, they ask, the question today has to do with guides. What guides are available to us? How are they available? How might we gain access to them and feel that we are being guided? This was asked on February of 1998. Carla Channeling says, you asked this day concerning guides, angels, guardian spirits, and guidance in general, and this is a subject peculiarly unsuitable to words. Indeed, the very nature of the metaphysical universe is such that guidance, which is always and constantly with you, is not that which translates into materialistic or fleshly body-oriented thinking. The common concept of a guide or guardian angel is of a specific being. However, not all of those who are part of your guidance system are beings in the same sense that you consider yourself an individual self. In order to clarify, we must retreat first to express some of the more general concepts. Firstly, let us look at the concept of personhood or personality. For each of you is a person and has personhood. This is within the illusion, something that you can trust. The flesh that rests upon your bones is flesh, and it shall continue until the spirit that enlivens that vehicle needs it no more. A skeleton remains a skeleton. The organs remain the organs. These things are physical and they are obvious. Consequently, entities, even spiritually oriented entities, tend, by and large, to think of the self as the flesh, the bones, the organs, the spiritual, as though the self had no other connections before, or will have no other connections after. The incarnation that you now experience, certainly it does not occur to many, that you have within the physical vehicle connections with and contact with non-physical and non-bodily energies and essences that are much part of who you are as those things that can be named, counted, and measured concerning your physical beingness. However, we feel it is true in our observation that the personality shell that animates the incarnational body is a very shallow, very limited selection of portions of yourself, in the greater or metaphysical sense, that you have chosen because these are the attributes and the limitations that you put together in order to be challenged, and in order to meet the challenges you would find within the body and within incarnational experience. As beautiful, sacramental, and worthy as this bodily personality shell and all that you see of yourself in the mirror is, it remains as insubstantial as a shadow next to the profound and infinite nature of your whole self. Indeed, it is difficult to explain or express, but within this very limited mind, which you sense within yourself and are aware of within yourself, you have a direct connection to all energy whatsoever. The entire universe is within yourself, and with care, regardless of the circumstances of incarnation and limitations within a body. There are ways in which the seeker may improve its connections with these deeper energies of self. It is in these deeper strata of self that the many kinds of guidance available to the seeker dwell. One of the advantages, therefore, of meditation that is silent is that when the inner silence is entered, the door betwixt the conscious and unconscious levels of mind opens for some very slowly, and others with a great bang, for most at a steady pace but relatively slow pace, interrupted occasionally by real leaps forward in awareness. This is the general pattern for people who have become conscious of their spiritual identity and now wish to accelerate the pace of spiritual evolution by making more efficient and thoughtful use of the resources available. Secondly, let us look at the concept of vibration. It may be helpful to you to begin to see things as vibrations. This instrument produces a sound vibration by moving air through a voice box, while distorting the face in various ways in order to produce what you call language. Language has to be made up of words because it is finite. It has to be made up of units of thought that are smaller than a concept. This in itself is very troubling to those in the metaphysical system of illusions that are attempting to speak with you, because the common communication used in the metaphysical universe is concept sharing or telepathy, as this instrument would call it. Communication by concept is a direct envisioning of a whole system of thought that is in a certain pattern and can be offered as a whole. To unravel a concept and exhaust its possibilities can be a lengthy process, the translation into words being awkward and elephantine compared to the cleanliness and lucidity of concept communication, which is but one kind of vibration. Most within your culture are aware that heat is a vibration. Light is a vibration. Most entities are not aware that all things are vibrations, and certainly it is not common thought within your earth plane that qualities, consciousness, essences, and energies are vibrations. Indeed, if one could choose one term to describe the manifested world, it would be vibration. The first vibration is that infinite love of the one creator, and each of you is a system of distortions of that vibration. Very simply put, the goal of the seeker is to become more and more congruent with the undistorted vibration of love. Infinite, universal love. The love that creates, the love that destroys, the love that is the I of you. This love is not a manifested vibration. The first manifestation of vibration within the outer world, which you now experience, is light, which this instrument has learned to call the photon. And it is from this building block of light that all collection of vibrations and systems of rotation spring, as well as all your elements. You have learned to go into the making of the various things that you can touch and see. All of these things are systems of vibration. When you seek guidance, you are not simply asking a friend to talk to you, not unless you wish to access a certain person who is within the inner or teaching planes of your illusion. Now, this instrument does not crave, shall we say, the personal guide, and therefore has not had experience with specific contact that comes from finding an inner planes teacher. For those who desire a named person, a person to count on, as you would a being with that personhood of personality shell, we recommended studying with the Oriental system and Asian systems of philosophy and theology. For it is within these cultures that the concept of the Creator as teacher creates a place or a space for inner plane guides. To become more familiar with that entire way of devotion is to bring the self more into the kind of setting, shall we say, of the inner expectations that would be more likely to produce the experience of contact with a specific entity. Within your Western philosophy, although many spiritual teachers are greatly revered, esteemed, and loved, they are not worshipped as incarnations of the Creator. Consequently, their beingness within the inner planes is quite different, and generally speaking, will move more into the vibratory levels wherein one is contacting a consciousness field of a certain vibration. For those who simply wish by whatever means to surrender to the will of the Infinite One, there is the feeling of the way, the tentative moving towards an orientation with one's own energies, with one's own essences, with one's connections into the deeper and deeper portions of the self. It is not necessary in order to be guided that you have any particular vision of your guide. However, as this instrument has often said, it is helpful to choose a mythical system such as Christianity, Buddhism, or any other spiritual or religious system of thinking, and realize the cosmos that you feel personally the most kinship to. This is not a matter, not necessarily of the mind, but rather of the emotions and of the spirit. The universe is far from blank. It is filled with the vibration of all that there is. Consequently, guidance is always very, very near. Using one spiritual system to realize guidance for yourself is wise. It organizes the effort made. It gives you some starting point from which to move forward. This instrument, for instance, desires to be led by what she calls the Holy Spirit. In choosing the Holy Spirit, this entity has done two things. Firstly, she has chosen within the mythical system she has felt most kinship to trust and cast her loyalty upon a certain kind of entity. Secondly, she has called upon herself for guidance comes from the deeper or higher self. Each mythical system gives one a way to realize these connections. Without choosing a mythical system to work with, the seeker must create a way of proceeding. Shall it be to name the name and to call upon that name? Shall it be to call upon a certain vibrational level that is desired? This is creative work in consciousness for the individual seeker. The one thing that is sure is that guidance is all about you. The one known as Jesus often said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." And certainly in this instrument's experience, we find a constant conversation with the forces of nature, with beings of bird and bush, and flower and sky. An overheard comment and chance happening. Anything and everything is material for this instrument because this instrument has come to the belief that all things are sacramental. Each person, each seeker must first realize her own way of perceiving, her own belief system, her own needs in terms of guidance. Some need a named person, some need a level of vibration, but behind all of the mental and conscious ways of gaining access to this guidance, there lies the identity of self with self. All guidance is from yourself in a less distorted configuration of vibration to the self within an incarnation. That incarnation in third density being deliberately and carefully cast into confusion and disarray. It may seem that there are emergencies where guidance must be had, but indeed the greatest friend to one who seeks guidance is sister patience. For there is the abiding, the waiting for the rhythm of things to come into the configuration which is harmonious and right. There is that moment when the one who has the heart to understand can almost feel the situation clicking into rhythm. And when that moment of the feeling of rightness comes, there is no doubt. There's only the awareness of and the great gratitude for guidance. Each kind of myth creates ways of thinking about this guidance. No one way of thinking is wrong. Each is an attempt by finite intellect to describe processes that are infinite and that take place outside the bounds of time and space. Consequently, there are many ways to think about guides and guidance as there are systems of thought. To this instrument, the mind goes to angels because this instrument has been steeped in the Christian faith. To other entities familiar with and finding comfort in other systems, doctrines, there are other kinds of beings configured a bit differently, moving perhaps from a different inner plane, and these are all genuine. For what is happening is beyond all of the systems of thought. It is energy relating to energy, love reflected in love. That is what guidance truly is, love reflected in love. To attempt to tell one about guidance, one must use finite words, and thus great confusion is born. Well, is it this way or is it that? It is all the ways that you can think of and none of them at all. With this paradox, we know again that we are in spiritual territory, yet that which is sought is ever at hand, closer than your own body, closer than your own thoughts, for the silence within those thoughts and within that body is beyond all time and space. And however you realize your guidance in this little life of the earth plane, you remain a citizen of eternity and your guidance is sure. In third density, a great veil drops, and one cannot see into the metaphysical universe, or to put it in terms of the mind, into the subconscious mind. One is not supposed to see into this mind for the reason that it is this density's lesson to learn to live by faith, by those qualities of love, faith, patience, and trust that defy the limitations of personality and confusion. Within each of you, there is a stubborn and sure conviction that this little life is not at all that there is. And when you have thought this for the first time, it is as if you have become awake in the land of the slumbering. We can only say to you who wish to become more aware of the guidance sought, that it is all about you, that there are ways of thinking about guidance and methods of guidance that you may consider and choose between. But know this, beyond all of your choices, the information that you need comes to you again and again and again. If you miss it this time, there will be another time. Your work indeed can be very simple, if you choose to make it so. If you choose to be a simple and unintellectual seeker, you may simply sit in the inner silence, expecting nothing, desiring nothing but communion with love, and that desire you may encourage and feed with the fodder of your thoughts, the branches and the trunks of your emotions. There is a yearning within each seeker for home. And when the angel or the guardian or the guide or the guidance itself is sought, there is that hope of a letter from home, of a pat on the back, or a hint of what the situation is from an older and wiser relative. Whatever the way you choose, you are seeking that home when you seek guidance. You are sensing that you are on a journey, and you are asking for some information closer to the source and ending of that journey. Be aware that you may be someone else's guide. Be aware when questions are asked of you, for that which is love may speak through you if you are empty enough and clear enough. Be aware that others may be your guide for a moment without any conscious intention, or with conscious intention. It makes no difference. For what is happening is that vibration is harmonizing with vibration, or not, and connections are being made or not. Thusly, if with patience you attend to the present moment and desire as purely as possible to know the love of the one Creator, that which is yours to do and that which is yours to be shall rhythmically come to you and express to you. And when you feel resistance, stop, wait, be aware. There's something that you need to know. Make space for that knowledge. Go into the silence and ask. Then be prepared to wait for that moment when the heart knows and there is no more doubt. May love always be reflected in love for each of you, and may all of those difficulties that are such good teachers find their ways into your heart as blessings indeed. In another channeling in 2017, they speak with Latos. They ask, how can the seeker find inspiration, information, and confirmation from inner guides? Jim channeling says, I am Latos, and greet each other once again in the love and light. The query that we have found within this instrument's mind is how the seeker of truth can find inspiration and information and confirmation from the inner realms, from the spiritual guides and teachers that each has attracted to in this incarnation. This is a query with each of you is most familiar with, in that each has called upon these inner resources many times within the conscious seeking portion of your own spiritual journeys. For to the conscious seeker of truth, it is soon apparent that there is much doubt and confusion within this third density illusion. There is much of what you would call misinformation regarding how the life should be lived, or could be lived, in a manner in which the spiritual facets are enhanced and the mundane world is used as grist for the mill, shall we say. Each of you has a number of inner resources upon which to call. You have guides, you have your higher self, you have those loved ones who have passed into the realms of the spirit, which are yet hovering about you, offering their assistance in whatever manner may be perceived, whether a hunch, intuition, a coincidence, or perhaps even a vision. And there are inner planes teachers that are drawn to each seeker of truth, according to the nature of the seeker's pursuit of that truth. For there are many ways in your third density illusion to pursue this seeking of what you call the truth. Indeed, whether you label your manner of seeking one way or another, you follow that path in a way which is unique to you. Whether you be Christian, Buddhist, Jain, Native American, or whatever, there are no two entities within this infinite creation who are the same. Each perceives in a different way, sometimes subtly, sometimes significantly. Thus, we encourage each seeker to rely upon those inner resources in times of prayer in times of meditation, in times of contemplation, in times of extreme need. A simple prayer of Jesus was one used by this instrument's mate many times, as she was of the Christian persuasion in the mystical nature. To continue our discussion of those inner resources upon which one may call as a source of inspiration and a source of direction to some extent, as you proceed through your daily round or activities in the process of living a life in which seeking the truth is a major part. Now, as you gaze within, you will find that resources may have available to you are legion and quite diverse. We are, as we speak, such a resource. But you will note that it is part of the protocol of these sessions that you are taught to challenge the contact. Now, to challenge the contact suggests there may be a certain degree of mistrust or disease with regard to the resource that you are calling upon. And we would say that disease is not entirely ungrounded, for you are enjoying a type of experience in which the sense of separation of you as an individual from all else is quite profound. And within the framework of the life experience which you enjoy, it is possible that certain voices, shall we say, shall rise up from within with a commanding tone that is not completely healthy for the seeker to embrace. And so it is useful to exercise discrimination in determining which of those inner resources you will allow to come through. We would say that in order to discover what you find to be consummate with what you take to be the highest and best energy you may sustain, it is well for you to ask a simple question beforehand, and that question is, who am I? If I am one who will embrace any voice that may arise to attention from within, I am one who risks being torn asunder from within. But if I am one who has tied the knot, shall we say, in the thread of meaning, so that as I wend my way through the life experience again and again, I can return to that fundamental sense of commitment to which I have decided I am bound. This refine is an essential portion of the kind of seeking you are engaged with, and it is something that you do well to keep in mind. Having said that, we will also say that this process of asserting who you are is itself fraught with difficulty, which we may describe as the problems of self-doubt. Doubting the self is an experience which tends to shake to the core the commitment, which in happier times can be said to issue forth in a clear and concise declaration of who I am. When I doubt myself, that clarity seems to be hard to come by. The nature of doubt is such that contraction develops around the self as it experiences life on your planet, for you see, very few stimulus that you meet in your daily round of activities will affirm for you who and what you are. Rather, what speaks to you in your world is the voice of illusion. An illusion that seems to tell you that you are this thing or that thing, that you are not brother or sister to your fellow beings, that you must first achieve certain conditions, gain certain things, that there is something missing to you or incomplete or partial. This illusion is pretty successful, we might say, in bombarding you and inundating you in an ocean of such information, such that it is almost permanent hypnosis, a permanent state of delusion about yourself. You take in these voices, and this instrument seeming to participate in this stream asks that we say also that you give out this voice as well, being not a passive victim, but a perpetuator of such illusion. That is, insofar as you identify with the illusion, your voice and the voices of those in your planetary population tend to emphasize that which is not. And into this matrix you are born, and without the seeming support from outside of yourself, reminding you of who and what you are, you must, through whatever mysterious process unfolds for you, awaken that spark within. Something alights within you, something calls, something suggests that you had learned up to the point of this awakening may be less than the total truth. Embarking on incarnation is fraught from the point of view of the incarnate. There are many threads to follow, and one cannot always satisfactorily follow each and every one in the course of a lifetime, let alone in a day. Look to your levels of inspiration. Maintain an awareness of your perception of truth. Reflections abound. Each one is both true and an illusion. The easy answers have been given long ago at this point in your journey. Basically, we ask you to care more, invest more deeply in the project of your life. However, mastery will not be your lot, for it is not the role of third density to afford that. Trust in the self, in the basic goodness of the self. The ultimate nature of your being is, therefore, all the more urgently required, and you have help achieving calm and collectedness so that you can assist others. We would like to inspire you with 3 ways, if you are feeling doubt, to reach out and set your intentions for inspiration. We are showing this instrument a star-like shape with 3 points. Within 1 point, we show this instrument your human ability to meditate, and within meditation and the sense of how you might say clearing your mind, you are better able to reach the ethers for inspiration and ideas and the energies that are around you. It is similar to, in your world, a radar. Set your intentions and you can receive the inspiration that you need. That will be the most helpful to you. Within the next point of this star is nature. When you sit in nature, when you walk in nature, you can enjoy the sounds and the fresh air. Breathe deep. Inspiration is all around you. You are so blessed to live in such a beautiful place. Inspiration is all around you. On the 3rd point of the star, we ask that you listen closely to your friends and even strangers that may speak to you. Set your intentions that you would like inspiration and will come from the mouths of those you hear. Pay close attention, and you might find it quite surprising to hear the things you needed to hear. We ask that you use this inspiration to manifest the things you need, and hopefully for service to others, as we know you are all have such good hearts and intentions to do so. We thank you for the service you give, and we thank you for giving us the chance to inspire you today. We see you seeking inspiration, and we receive inspiration from you. We are truly grateful for your efforts. The experience of the wanderer or the spiritual path can be very dark at times, lonely, divided. Inspiration is the fuel to help you upon your spiritual path. The beauty of existence is that inspiration is in every atom and molecule and every entity, no matter how small or large. The inspiration is there in that it is part of you and you are part of it. Everything is divine and interconnected because you are part of it and it is part of you. Know that while you have experienced darkness, there is light in that darkness. Under that darkness, around that darkness, when one finds themselves uninspired or lost, one can take a deep breath and step back, remembering that all is perfect and as it should be. While things may be uncomfortable, while things may be unfortunate or seem dire, that is fuel for catalyst for growth, knowing that this, all of this, every experience, every other self is a part of you and meant to help you grow. Let that inspire you. Let that afford you the energy, the strength, the will to continue on your spiritual path. We have discussed means and methods for seeking inspiration within your experience. We suggest to you that these are techniques and clothing of the heart of which you seek. The method is but a manifestation of the will to find inspiration and to channel inspiration. And it is through the inspiration that you seek the greater number of allies and friends may offer their services to you from those unseen realms, unseen yet permeating all about you. When you declare to the Creator and to yourself the desire to find inspiration in your moment, though whatever method you find most effective for your particular configuration, the call rings out through the universe and a choir sings with joy at this call. Having opened yourself to receive and manifest inspiration, you will find that you may connect with those who have responded to your call. When you find this weakened by doubt of the self, doubt of your own power, the doubt of your own worthiness, we suggest not to bury the doubt, to fight it. Rather, not to fight it, but to approach it. We may seem as darkness is as the night, and as your eyes adjust to the night, they will adjust to the darkness of this doubt. And as more stars appear in the nighttime, as you grow accustomed to the darkness, so will the stars of faith and inspiration appear within the darkness of doubt. The simple act of turning the head upwards, pointing the eyes toward the sky, and trusting that there is the star that will guide you. This act will build upon itself for each moment that you seek this star, until eventually you will find yourself once again amid the vivid brightness of daytime, with inspiration readily available everywhere that you look. And in another question on April 1st, 2006, Jim asks, our first question has it as its focus the role of the spirit guides in the ascension process. We would like for Quo to tell us what this role is. Carla channeling says, you have asked this day concerning the role of spirit guides in the ascension process. We find this somewhat humorous because this instrument has been working for the past several days upon a manuscript of the channelings from the Holy Spirit, which is this instrument's spirit guide. Consequently, this instrument is steeped in that companionship and comfort which is the role of the guidance system of each entity. Your guidance system, whether you characterize it as this instrument does in the Christian term of Holy Spirit, or whether you characterize it in other ways, is nevertheless a part of the interwoven consciousness of Creator and created. You are never without your guidance system. A key concept to remember when thinking of your guidance is not what form or shape it takes, but what its essence is. The essence of that spirit that companions you throughout an incarnation is unconditional love, absolute support, unending compassion, and a clarity of understanding that takes in the full sweep of the octave of densities within which you now enjoy consciousness. It is not an event that occurs in a moment to ascend. Ascension is rather a process. Think of third density, if you will, as a spiritual distillery. You know of how a distiller creates spirits from the fruit of the vine or grain using various substances, such as yeast, hops, raisins, and many other choices of ways to create a chemical reaction which will distill the raw ingredients into the finished wine that is full of delicious taste of all its ingredients and due to the chemical processing has transformed its nature. Such is your process in enjoying incarnation upon planet Earth. We have observed that the dogma-driven thinking of your religions, especially the one known as Christianity, has skewed the thinking about the ascension process and has created of it not a joyful, celebratory event, but a fear-driven, doom-filled event. It is not the intention of the Creator that the process of ascension be narrowed down to an event of any kind. However, were a very narrow view to be taken of ascension so that one could see it as an event, it would be an event that was as full of positive emotions as one's birthday, one's wedding day, or any other celebrations or party to which one looked forward greatly. The whole concept of ascension as a terrifying moment when the world ends and suddenly you are standing before a righteous judge is far from the Creator's mind, as far as we understand the Creator's mind, and we note here that our understanding is faulty. We offer only our humble opinion at all times. Your life is a process of gradual ascension. You start with the raw ingredients. Throughout your life, each choice that you make advances the distilling process. At the moment of death, the gateway to larger life opens and you yourself are able to see with the enhanced vision of time-space where you are in your ascension process. You are the judge that you have so feared. Your spirit guidance system or higher self is there with you as a resource to you. From our point of view, we see the term spirit guide as somewhat lacking in specificity. We would rather discuss the higher self, for in terms of the structure of this resource of the self, the higher self comes from a place in the circle of your personality stream, shall we say, or your soul stream, that is far in advance of your consciousness within incarnation at this time. The higher self is yourself at a point within sixth density where the lessons of unity have been so far advanced that you as an entity have become aware in sixth density that you are moving away from close contact with that which has been laid within your memory as the occurrences of all of the densities up through sixth. They are falling away from you at this point, and your mind, heart, and will are turning ever more toward the face of the Creator. You are acquiring enough spiritual gravity that you are aware that this is your goodbye to the self of this creation. You are not any longer interested in your personality shell. You are ready to be absorbed into the Godhead principle once again. And so you in turn, in the midst of sixth density, in this very precious and pivotal point in the distillation of your soul, and you leave a resource behind as a gift to yourself. It is available in third density, fourth density, fifth density, and if needed in the beginning of sixth density for that soul and spirit that you are. Inextricably bound into your consciousness. It must be asked in order to be heard. The spirit or higher self will not speak unless it is asked. It cannot intrude upon free will. It must wait for your interest, your desire, your questions, your cries, your groanings, your rejoicings, and any other conversation that you wish to have. It waits patiently, full of love. knowing you because it is you, but you at your highest and best. So there is color to the spirit, there is energy and liveliness, but there is not physicality. The spirit is uncreated, it is a resource, an essence of your will. Therefore, at the moment of death, your higher self is with you, part of you, supporting and encouraging you as you walk into the light of larger life. Question, quo, are there other selves that act as spirit guides like angels or other forms? There are so many sources of guidance, quo says, that are around you, that to discuss them in depth is impossible. But we can simply name them. They include, as you said, angels, and there are many varieties of angels, pixies, elves, fairies, nature divas, and spirits of all kinds, the essences of elements. There are spirits such as undines, sylphs, naiads, dryads, and all the totem with which you have been associated in past lives. As well, there are many entities in the inner realms who are drawn to you when you are conspicuously loving, patient, or intent upon the truth, passion for goodness, for fairness, for love, for devotion to the one infinite creator. All draw entities to you that dwell within the inner realms in one capacity or another. And so you may have about you literally dozens of helpful, loving sources of inspiration and guidance. Each is in harmony with the other sources of guidance that are about you, and they constitute your family in the unseen realms. Also to be considered are those entities which are associated with you in other densities, especially for those of you who are wanderers. When you have incarnated as many times as each of you has incarnated, the web of connections becomes truly amazing, expanding infinitely and including virtually everyone on the planet. Consequently, the concept of one spirit guide or two spirit guides, or a limited number of them, is not accurate in our opinion. For if you are sufficiently motivated to focus your will to that laser-like quality that it can achieve when your emotions and your desires are coherent, you call a very large percentage of the unseen realms to aid and support you. Thus, it is that we encourage entities to find their passion and follow it. We leave each of you in the power and the peace of this adventure. We are those known to you as the principle of quo. We leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, Adonai. And that is a good summary of what I could find on guides. There is much more, a lot of it repetitive, and some of this was repetitive, but the idea is they have outlined that you have guidance within you. There are spirit guides, there's your higher self, and there is so much more. The nature around you, angels, pixies, elves, all of that they are saying is real. There are aspects of yourself. We know on a more advanced level that Ra is saying within you is these three aspects: the male, the female, and the androgynous. But clearly this is outlined as so much more. Your family, the family from other lives, your current family that have passed away that are with you. I have felt the presence of all of these. Maybe when you simply are remembering somebody, it's not a remembrance. It's an actual acknowledgement that they're there with you. And so the key that I get from this is when you seek inspiration, you will find it, and that meditation is the key. And you have to ask for this guidance and to be open to all that you hear, including friends, strangers, people around you. All of it is guiding you. And so I hope that this helps you to tune into your guides. Try some meditations on how to find your spirit guides if that helps. Or open yourself to the silence. Check out my episode on how to enter the silence. That is also very good. The silence is where we meet these guides, and that is a process of meditation. All is well, and you are finding the guidance you need. You found this episode, and this was probably given to you as you seek guidance. And as you continue to seek guidance, you will find more and more answers to whatever it is you're seeking. So thank you for sharing this with me. I'd love to know about your experience with guides. Do you have multiple guides? So many other great spiritual teachers talk about their guides. Trinvalo Melchizedek talks about them often, and Vadim Zeland talks about them. And they are there for you, and I'd love to get your feeling. Let's talk about it in the comments. Like this video for people so that we get into the algorithm and they can learn more about their guides as well. I love these Quo teachings. They are very wonderful and spiritually powerful, and they resonate deeply with me, and I will continue. If you have a particular topic, I can certainly look into it for you. But I just want to thank you for sharing this time with me, and I am sending out love and light to all of you. Thank you so much. It's such an honor that you share this time with me. And all episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.